Manifest Destiny and the Mexican War. First, what is Manifest Destiny? Well, three main ideas can be seen in the original quote from John L. O'Sullivan, the editor of the U.S. Magazine and Democratic Review. Basically, that God is on the side of America. That's something that we've heard before, if you look back even as far as the City on a Hill speech by the Puritans in New England. That we want to spread democracy, that's what he means by free development, and that growth of our nation requires more land. We don't want to end up like Europe, where we run out of land and have distinct class divisions between rich and poor. In 1820, Mexico became an independent nation. They gained their independence from Spain. And they invite Americans to settle and develop Texas, which at the time was a part of Mexico, a state in Mexico. And those Americans settling in the Texas part of Mexico would be expected to do the following: immigrate as families. They didn't. Most of the people who came were criminals escaping the law. They were expected to become Catholic. They didn't do that. They were expected to speak Spanish. Again, no on that as well. And as a result, there's conflict between Mexico putting restrictions on American immigration and restrictions on slaveholding. And eventually, Mexico gets so frustrated with the Americans living in Texas that they end local rule. They say, no local government for you guys. We are making all the decisions for you. And they even raise an army to try to control the Texans. And that fighting breaks out in 1835. And the Americans are attacked and defeated at the Alamo and Goliard. They would say they were slaughtered at those locations. But the Texans have a big victory at San Jacinto, and they capture the leader, Santa Anna, and they force him under duress to recognize the independence of Texas. And General Sam Houston is named the President of the Republic of Texas. In other words, Texas becomes an independent country in 1836 and will stay an independent country until 1845. So how does Texas enter the nation? Well, the process starts with John Tyler. He was the guy who was vice president under William Henry Harrison. Harrison dies, Tyler becomes president, and Tyler himself wants to get reelected. But he's not very popular with his own party, the Whig Party. So he chooses the annexation of Texas as the issue that's going to gain him support. And he knew that the South would be strongly supportive of annexing Texas because it's going to add another large slave state to the Union. So Tyler asks one of the leading Southern politicians, John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, to help with the treaty that would bring Texas into the United States. Calhoun thinks that this issue is going to unite the South, and he thinks that this issue is going to help unite the South and take the offensive against abolitionists. And it's really going to allow Southerners to gauge the national opposition to slavery. Reports begin to surface that the British are interested in possibly economically assisting Texas in exchange for abolishing slavery. In other words, the British might help Texas pay off their debts. Remember, they just fought a war. Wars are expensive. The British might be willing to help pay off their debts if the Texans are willing to end slavery. Britain had ended slavery, is opposed to slavery, and is trying to encourage other nations to do the same. This, though, would be a threat to the American South. You would have this big anti-slavery republic right next to most of the South and right next to some of the really strong cotton-producing regions of the South. People in the North think this looks like a pro-slavery plot to Northern Whigs. Northern Whigs see this as a trick, a plan to try to stir up support for annexing Texas because Southerners aren't going to want a free republic down there with no slavery, and also no American is going to want Britain to have that much influence that close to our borders. So John C. Calhoun's treaty is rejected because people think that it's really a plot, that it's not true that Britain is willing to help Texas. However, the annexation of Texas stays the main issue of the election of 1844.